I get the word that it's going to be, Marty Friedman, Alex Skolnick, Richard, and Nuno. And I'm like, okay, now we've reached a level of ridiculous where I'm looking over at my record collection and going, I'm about to play with my record collection here, like contribute to a song based on what I've been listening to for the last 30, 35 years. Like, bizarre. A lot of players, what they would do is they would go, holy crap, it's Marty Friedman and Nuno. I better just run in there gunning, and I'm going to show them that I can play crazy, arpeggios and all this stuff. And I thought they would hate that. They would absolutely hate that.
Going on, guys? Welcome to 2020. The band is back together. We're super pumped. Obviously, Ben and Siobhan, Corey here. We're all hanging out with our good buddy Kelly Kereliuk, obviously of Lost Symphony, also of Prism Mind, also of Negus, also of Art Griffin's Sound Chaser. It's his. And
the Sound Chaser of Art Griffin.
It's been a minute since we've had a band chat. So thank you.
Indeed.
Thank you for coming to hang back.
Thanks for having me.
Can I encourage everyone who's watching, though, if you've never heard Kelly play, go to lostsymphony.com right now. Just go there.
Even if you've heard him play, you can still.
Yeah, even if you've heard him play, just go to lostsymphony.com and go listen. Go listen or find Lost Symphony on YouTube. It's probably the best thing, like Lost Symphony music. But the point is that it's going to make this episode so much better for you, because when you realize that we're talking to an actual alien sent from outer space just to play guitar.
And from Canada, to be more precise.
It's might as well. I mean, it's outer space as far as we're concerned. We're in Boston, so
there you go.
But I just want people to understand that it's disconcerting, the level for which Kelly plays, to the point where even our benefactor, who could care less about shred guitar, he doesn't know the difference between Marty Friedman and where Jeff Loomis ends. I think he used the word, Kelly is mesmerizing to watch. So if taken from any out of touch 60-something-year-old. Kelly's mesmerizing.
I'll take it.
That Canadian humility.
Right? Exactly. Well, good to see you guys. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Whenever this podcast airs.
Yeah, happy birthday for the last couple of years.
Right? Yeah.
We have a lot to catch up on.
Well, that's exactly. We definitely do.
Well, so tell us, Kelly, what is going on in your life right now? Obviously we're all friends and we're following you on you share so much on social media. You're a great teacher. You're great at doing all these videos, and obviously an amazing guitar player. So tell us about some of the things that are going on, what you're doing in the guitar life of yours.
Always looking for something new, or learning something new. So let's see, where do we start? Since I talked to you guys, I started a more lesson-based YouTube channel. Which is mostly focusing on evergreen content, right? So subjects that will never get old, subjects that will never not be relevant. And so that's up and running, and I am going to kick into that even more this year.
So what are some of those subjects, though, just for anyone listening? What do you consider some of those subjects?
Before you go on, is a double negative like a double flat or a double sharp? Because you just used a lot of double negatives, and I'm confused already. I don't know if I'm supposed to do it or not supposed to do it.
Now I'm confused even more as well. But
you said definitely you were using double negatives, so I didn't know if you meant the opposite of what you were saying.
I didn't realize I was doing that. I apologize to all the the English fanatics, but no, just basic stuff like certain technique things that someone might have a question about when they get started. So it's not necessarily geared towards advanced players at all. So it's not like, here's the craziest thing I know how to play, let me show it to you and hope for the best. This is more like when you're practicing, let's say you're beginner or intermediate, you have questions, right? Inevitably, it's like, am I doing this right? Or how come I always run into this little roadblock? So what I do is I just take what I've encountered in my 30-some years of teaching. I go, what's a common question I get, right? So it's geared towards the things that I've run into with people over and over and over again, and I just made videos about it. essentially. So that's what that channel is mostly about.
So what stuff doesn't get old, Kelly? So like, realize I'm going to cut this up into a bunch of stuff and send it to you to post anyway. So why don't you give us a little synopsis for us dum-dums out here? Like, what do I need to learn about?
Ben just literally stole my question and repositioned it. But anyway, that's right.
It's called wolf packing, buddy.
Right? Yeah. Well, for example, there's a lot of people who think they know the notes on the fretboard well. They think they have a good knowledge of the notes on the fretboard. And if you watch that particular video, the title of which I don't recall right now, but it's one of the ones about learning the notes on the fretboard, the first thing you'll see is me playing I'm going to say it's every F on the neck in probably 3 seconds. From low to high, every string, every octave, boom. And I say, if you can't do that, like right now, if you can't do that, you don't know the notes on your instrument as well as you need to. Right?
I feel like you're my dad. You don't know anything about notes. I play guitar every day. I don't know where all the F's are. So fuck you.
This is a really good point, though, because in my of times that I've played with the guitar players, I've noticed that a lot, like as a violinist too, because I remember being in school and, we would do exercises in studio class that's like, know your fingerboard, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, find an F on the D string and whatever, and you have to know what position and like find it immediately. And that's a big part of it is like, because especially if you want to go into being a studio player or something or record stuff quickly, like if people are throwing stuff at you, you've got to know like where to find that note, how to adjust quickly. So that's massive.
Well, there is that. And the thing too is a lot of players, they sort of know the notes, and I can see. I watch them. I'll say, "Okay, what note is this?" And I'll play the 3rd fret on the E string, and it's a G. And I'll go, like, "Where's another G?" And I can see they pull out this protractor and this compass, and they do the math. They're like, if I go over 2 strings and up 2 frets, they go through this additional calculation, which to my mind should not be necessary. It will always be necessary for those players until they embark on truly getting to know the fretboard in a linear way. And so I show them I think it's 2 exercises on what to do, and they're painful. No one's going to like doing them. But I mean, look at the expression on Benny's face right now. That's literally the expression I get when I'm telling people what to do to get through that so they can go bing, bang, bing, bang, and find that note no matter where they need it. The thing is, they won't do it unless they understand the importance of why they should do it. Now, you, Siobhan, just explained one of those things. So in a more proper classical setting, right, the need to know where a particular note is or have the flexibility of knowing where else that note could be is important. For a guitar player, they're more likely going to be improvising. So in an improvisational, let me try that again. In an
improvisational, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, improvisational. There, thank you. It's late.
Let's say that.
It's late. But here's the thing. You're playing over chords. Chords contain notes. And if you match the notes, I know, right? And if you match those notes, you're going to make the strongest connection to those chords. Right? So
is that the chordal scales that Carol K keeps yelling at me about? Because she told me that because I learned all these scales from all the metalheads that was dumb, and that really all I needed to know was the chordal scales, but I didn't know what that meant.
I think I know where she's going with that. It's not exactly the same, but let's take an example of we'll go from E minor to A major. Okay, so E minor contains 3 notes, E, G, and B, and A major contains A, C sharp, and E. If you're improvising over that, there is a scale that will work with that. You could use E Dorian, and that will cover your ass for everything. But for any given chord, you have 3 notes, and a scale contains 7. So the odds are not stacked in your favor to just think in a scale-based way. You're going to hit more weak notes if you do that than you are strong notes. So if you know where the notes of the E minor chord are, regardless of where you are on the fretboard, even if you had 1 string, if someone snipped all your strings except 1, you should still be able to play a strong musical phrase based on the chord that you're playing over. Like, recognize the host, right? If you show up to someone's house, you don't not say hi. So it's sort of like not playing the notes of the chord.
Don't not say hi.
Don't not double negative, right? So that's what the way I look at it is knowing the notes is not just to know them, it's so that you can make the strongest statement you can over that chord. If your band fell asleep or passed out in midway in a performance live, would your audience still understand the chord progression that you're playing over based on your note choice? If not, they're not getting their money's worth.
That's interesting. Who were we talking to recently who said that if you took the backing away from even the most epic of like rock solos, it would sound like crap because they're so dependent on the accompaniment? Who was it? It was a recent guest. It might have been Richard. It might have been Richard Shaw. He was saying that he's like, if you took away the backing to Stairway to Heaven and you just had the solo, you'd be so confused. Yeah. You'd be so confused. So that's an interesting.
Well, we were talking about arrangement, I think, and the importance of that. Yeah.
Now, Jimmy does touch upon some of the key notes, like when that goes to the F chord, right? He finishes that initial pentatonic run in A minor, but he knows to not land on that E. Right? When that F chord hits, he's like, oh, I'm going to hit the F. So he does. There are moments where he does do exactly what we're referring to.
Mm. Can I share something, though, that I learned from Marty Friedman?
Sure.
Because I hit a lot of bad notes. But what I do is I just bend it until it sounds good. So I don't have to know any of those things you're talking about. All I need to know is hit one of those notes, and if it's one of the four that's wrong, just bend it.
It's the Zen of Marty.
It's just whether it's a half step or a whole step, one of them's going to hit.
Well, I think the point is to have the knowledge to do everything intentionally. So it's okay to hit a wrong note, but as long as it's got the proper intention, I suppose.
You call it jazz.
Yeah.
It's just jazz.
Any
That's
note,
when it's proper.
Any note could be thought of as a chord tone. If you think about it, right?
Well, sure. Yeah, it could be a 13 or a whatever.
Right, exactly. So there are no wrong notes, as everyone likes to say, but there are probably better notes at certain times. So,
right. Anyway. But of course, more importantly, it's best to know your fretboard so that you have the freedom to easily improvise or know where you want to go or find things quickly. I mean, that's part of mastering your instrument.
Absolutely. Yep, that's exactly it. So that's one thing I try to impress upon people who are getting to the point where they're getting past just learning songs, right? And I encourage that at first as a teacher. I don't force any of that. I'm like, what initially made you want to pick up the instrument in the first place? Because we're going to do that. And they're like, cool. Right? Because they're like, I thought I was going to learn Mary Had a Little Lamb, and I thought it was going to be, like taking piano lessons or something where you have to go through this series of things. And I'm like, no. We're going to learn what you want to learn. Everything else is going to be natural curiosity once you get hooked.
But let's say I come to you, I just got my first Fender Squier, and you're like, what made you want to play it? I say, Tim Henson from Polyphia. Your move.
Okay, here's one note. Make sure that note sounds like Tim Henson, I guess. I don't know. No, I mean, within context.
How do you take all the soul out of a note? No, just kidding. He's great.
The answer, don't bend it.
Okay.
Right? Don't be a boomer, apparently, right?
Yeah, boomer bends.
So,
well, I think it's very interesting. So Kelly, and one of the things I respect about him, and I will say this, I took lessons from him. He gave me some of these alternate picking exercises because I learned from the school of James Hetfield where it's just like down is the only way with string skipping and all that sort of stuff. And at first I'm like, how would you ever play this fast? Now that it's like a year and change later, I'm shredding because of this dude. So and I'm terrible. So I say that to everybody that's important. But I want to ask you, so you're from the old school, all right? So Kelly, when he plays on Lost Symphony, for everyone to know, he does those in takes. It's not like it's comped together like some of the stuff that Corey and I do where it's like, okay, play it 5 times. We'll get this part. We'll get that part. It's that 17 note run. It's going to be that third harmony. Kelly literally just goes, okay, it's a 10-minute song. All right, let's start at 0. Just play till it's right. Now we're in this world with all these insane Instagram guitarists that have crazier technique by the time they're 17. I mean, I see these younger and younger, I saw some pretty goth girl today playing this insane Yngwie meets Jeff Loomis, but then she's picking with her fingers, but then holding. I'm like, how did they learn this technique? How do you feel as someone that has literally run for 25 years every morning to become an Olympic athlete versus these people that aren't even alive for the 10,000 hours that are playing like this on the internet?
I feel fine. It doesn't matter. There's always going to be I mean, look at it this way. If you're, and I haven't watched hockey in 30 years, literally, but
That's sacrilegious.
right, Gretzky.
How have they not kicked you out of Canada?
I'll make it up. I'll make it up here, right?
Oh, there you go. Tim Hortons, ladies and gentlemen.
It was your civic duty or something. I don't know.
That's right. There's my mugshot, all right? So, Gretzky was the guy. But how many generations did it take before he was okay compared to, Sidney Crosby or whoever has come since him? That are people like, no, that guy is now like the guy. So it's sort of like that. Whenever a newer generation of players comes through that's stunning, I don't get to the point where I'm like, oh, screw that, or I don't get discouraged or anything. It's sort of like, wow, that's amazing. Technically, I try to find something to appreciate from it. Do they have an album out? Probably not. You know what I mean? How's their songwriting? Right? So you can have all the chops in the world. You can be the most dazzling player, but nobody really has the full picture, like the full enchilada.
When you hear some of these new players and speaking of like Polyphia and those bands that really kind of they flip technique on its head in a way that was never done previously, is there anything that you find that inspires you to, like, at this point in your career as a guitarist, that is a new kind of feature of guitar that you're discovering?
Not so much a new feature. I'm just looking to improve on my personal articulation of ideas, as opposed to trying to cram as many clever ideas as possible. Like a lot of what I hear in like the modern space is like technically phenomenal, but a lot of it I wouldn't actually listen to because it sounds like a million great ideas in 30 seconds. And I'm like, any one of those ideas could be a song, man. Chill out.
Yeah.
Right? Chill out. Everyone's trying to out clever. It seems to me that they're trying to out clever the next guy, and they're achieving it, right? And their level of ability is going through the roof. That part I admire. I'm like, that's like, you guys are insane. But as a piece of music, would I sit and listen to it? Once, maybe. Right? But
well, I think that's the current culture, that everything's so myopic, with like short form content and everything. It's like all about cramming into a very small period of time all the things, because that's about as much attention span as you're going to get. But you're right. If you zoom out and look at the big picture, it's like, what function does that serve in the actual world of music, of songs, of songwriting, of phrases, of, so that makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. So, and to answer another aspect of your initial question, I'm also going to be starting an Instagram page based on short, guitar licks, just kind of like what we're talking about. But I just thought I've got some ideas for that space that I'm not seeing in some of the other sites that are out there. So I will be doing that as well.
That's awesome. Well, that's like, I mean, as a violinist, that's one thing that I think is cool about guitar is the idea of licks. It's like something that you guys are all learning licks. And I don't even know what the proper definition of a lick is, but I like the idea of it because in violin, everything's like so long, I mean, you don't learn just little, like, here's a snippet of something cool that you could play. That just doesn't exist in the violin world, at least not the classical violin world, In
learning some of those pieces, I agree. There isn't really a lot of repetition in terms of like parts that come back, right? Like I just sort of relearned Partita number 3, like front to back. I learned it years ago, played it for a little bit, moved on to something else, forgot chunks of it, became dissatisfied with that and relearned it again. And there are parts that actually do reoccur, but they reoccur in a different key, maybe. And by the time you hear it again, you forgot the first time. Right? So it's like
summary of classical music in general.
It's like a chorus that comes back, but the first chorus was so long ago that you forgot what it sounded like, right? So there's parts like that, and I would consider them licks in a way. A lick would be to me a musical like phrase or something that could be morphed into other things, changed. In certain ways. Can
I recommend, based on all that we've learned about everyone's attention span, that you record on behalf of us as I keep telling Siobhan every day that we're content creators before anything.
Yeah.
And once we start you're a content creator.
I get a call from Ben every day about this.
Second. but that's how you're going to be successful.
Yeah.
But I would encourage you to record that song, send it to me. I'll have Siobhan and Mariko and Susanna play on it. You guys all film yourselves, and I'll cut it up into little 45-second chunks.
You're saying all
9 by 16. So that it'll go back and forth from you, but we'll invite each other as collaborators on the internet so that we can share our social media and break the algorithm together, and we'll realize that what we did with Lost Symphony, where we basically created this super virtuosic music with Kelly. Which, by the way, I want to say to everyone watching and listening that Kelly was the guy that we found. I take credit for him completely, all of his skill, and for Canada, everything. I take credit for it. I found
like
him.
The sixth level of a different story right now.
But I put him against every single one of my heroes on my mixtape growing up on Lost Symphony. So Marty Friedman, the Jeff Loomis, Nuno Bettencourt, Alex Skolnick, all these incredible people. And every single time, Kelly never let me down. There was never a time where he composed a solo. I'm like, okay, Marty Friedman, Nuno, Richard Shaw, Alex Skolnick are all going to do solos, so this better be good. Never once did Kelly ever submit anything that wasn't as good, if not quietly as the Jewish mother in the corner, better than a lot of the other people that you know already. Like, I want to know, what do you do? Like, what do people like that aspire to be that level of mesmerizing, where you transcend 60-year-olds that don't even know what shred guitar is? Like, shred, is that a cheese? Like, what do you do to become mesmerizing, Kelly? Why are you so mesmerizing?
I don't know. All I can tell you is that I'll give you an example. So take another piece, right? Take another piece. I get the email from Ben, or was it a phone call? It sounded like yelling in my head.
Both. Oh, yeah. No, probably both. I hammered it home.
You're referring to Take Another Piece off of Chapter 3,
Chapter 3, yep.
Chapter 3 of Lost Symphony at lostsymphony.com. That's what you're referring to, right?
Yes, and go to the YouTube to see Kelly playing. We've got a great music video.
Lost Symphony Music. So youtube.com/Lost Symphony Music. Go listen to everything and subscribe. Please subscribe and hear what Kelly's doing. Continue.
So I get the info. I get the word that it's going to be, Marty Friedman, Alex Skolnick, Richard, and Nuno. And I'm like, okay, now we've reached a level of ridiculous where I'm looking over at my record collection and going, I'm about to play with my record collection here, like contribute to a song based on what I've been listening to for the last 30, 35 years, like bizarre. So a lot of players, what they would do is they would go, holy crap, it's Marty Friedman and Nuno. I better just run in there gunning. I'm going to run in there gunning, and I'm going to show them that I can play crazy, arpeggios and all this stuff. And I thought, they would hate that. They would absolutely hate that if I did that. They'd be like, this guy's just trying to get our attention, and he's not really adding it to anything. So what I did, and I do this with every single song, I step back and I go, what's being said and what's needed? And if the opportunity arises, can I throw a couple of extra volleys of stuff in there that, showcases what I do or whatever. So that's why when you see my little segment on that or hear it, it doesn't sound like I'm trying to outshine Nuno, who just came before me, and good luck with that anyway, or Marty, who comes in right after me. It's sort of like, no, I'm the baton in the relay race. Nuno handed it to me. I run with it for a second. I'm going to hand it to Marty, and I want it to be a cohesive thing that even if you can't see who's playing what, it sounds like a story. It sounds like a continued adventure, as opposed to like, oh, okay, this guy's obviously, overzealous and, just full of piss and vinegar just to show off to his heroes or whatever. And it was that's never the consideration with these pieces.
Yeah, well, that comes through because Take Another Piece to this day is still one of our more consistent, tracks that are available. People are listening to it more and more. Obviously the name power brings people in, but it wouldn't have this staying power if it wasn't written in that kind of, the way that it is very cohesive. There's melody, there's parts. It doesn't just sound like a backing track with people ripping over it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
the greatest compliments to Kelly is because obviously there's a lot of comments on that song I think it's in the thousands at this point. And, it's like, oh, Marty's the best, or Nuno's the GOAT, or, a few of them are like, Alex Skolnick's so good, I wish he played metal more and stop talking. I love you, Alex, but that's what they say. I don't know. But everyone, like 25 down, there'll be one that says like, who's the guy that looks like a Viking, which is Richard Shaw. Like that guy's like amazing. He's like David Gilmour, but shreddier, but so tasty. And then we'll get like, is that Johnny Winter? Like, who's that? Like Jerry Cantrell dude? Who's Blondie? There's a lot of Blondies on there. Like who's Blondie? They're like, that guy is ridiculous. I can't tell you. Like, so there's just all this back and forth of who of these guys are the best. But then every once in a while, someone will just notice you or Richard out of nowhere and just be like, but yo, Blondie or Viking dude. And because you're still on the same song as these guys. And I'll tell you that in 100 years, no one's going to say, oh my God, that guy's better than that. Like, you're on the same, as far as I'm concerned, we have 3 albums, chapters 1, 2, and 3, which you can find on LostSymphony.com, where we basically almost 25 times put Kelly against Jimmy Bell from Autograph, who's like the fastest lefty that lost out to Zach Wilde and Ozzy, but could have easily done it. Easily. Like, literally.
You always say lefty. Jimmy's one of the fastest players I've ever seen in my life. I don't even know a right-handed player that can compete with him.
But that's what I'm saying. He's the fastest I've seen that's a lefty, unequivocally. Other than Conrad Simon, who's also on Chapter 1 from Canada.
So you just dismissed Corey's comment.
Yeah, no, I'm ignoring it. Jeff Loomis, again, Satchel, Nuno Bettencourt, Ollie Herbert, our good friend from All That Remains. The funny part is that Kelly and myself weren't even familiar with Ollie's playing. So like having Kelly like sniff out Ollie and Ollie sniff out Kelly, being like, wow, that was really cool, that Dorian thing he did. Oh, and then Kelly will like send... It was amazing to watch because it's like we were discovering these amazing players together, and like what a great experience
totally
for me as a producer, having this idea to have all these crazy guitar players play, and then I find the sickest, like literally the guy, like, again, white man can't jump. Like, oh yeah, pick out any dude. Let's play some basketball. And then you just go hustle him. Like, yeah, find any guy, like you're sitting over there in the corner in the sandbox, like whatever, like just minding your, take Blondie over there. Take Blondie, and you just pick up the guitar and just murder their faces. Tell Tim Henson how to play. I have these fantasies.
That's funny, man. That's hilarious. Siobhan's taking notes. Oh my God, he just said murder face. What not to say in the next episode. Yeah, no, you're right. The whole thing, the whole body of work has just been like, I think people, they look at us and they're like, how the God fuck are you guys pulling this off? Like, I can't get my local whatever to pay attention to me. How are you guys getting these guys to pay attention to you to the degree of like actually going and participating with this? And I'm like, well,
Ben is beating them down emotionally until they agree.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And then there's Benny, who's relentless.
Guerrilla warfare.
Yes, exactly. Right. But kind of cool that the business cards that roped a lot of these initial guys in were just the first few tunes that we did. Right. Here's what we do. Yeah. And they took the time to listen to it and went, huh, all right.
I'll tell you the 2 songs. If people want to go back and find them, Leave Well Enough Alone off Chapter 2 was the first song we ever did. And then Catnip High off Chapter 1, which is the only major song we had for the first group of tunes.
That's one that I show everybody whenever, like, not talked about enough, by the way. Like, I feel like we never mention that song, but I always show that song to anyone when I'm telling them about Lost Symphony. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, same.
I will say, I hadn't met Conrad, like even talked to Conrad Simon, who's on that song, and Kelly, and they just arranged these parts. And I literally, Kelly and Corey and I would sit and talk to each other like, are these guys even real? Like, how could, like, we would sit there and try to take it apart and be like, if we were going to fake what these guys were doing, how did we do it? Corey's like, I could probably record it one note at a time. like this was like at the beginning of all the Pro Tools. Like, you can do it now. Like, you can obviously fake it because anything can be done. But like, when we started doing Lost Symphony, like over half a decade ago, which is crazy to think, over half a decade ago, we literally sat there and we didn't know if you guys were real. Like, that's how insane the guitar playing is. And since then, like, that's become the bar with Instagram. But like, we had the original Instagram with Lost Symphony with Conrad, Simon, and Kelly with Catnip Pie. Go check it out. It's great. It's major.
Very major.
Ionian.
Very,
very Ionian. So Ionian.
So Ionian.
The cool thing about that song that I don't know if we talked about on the previous time that you were on with us, Kelly, is that intro that was originally just, I believe, just an accompaniment to another, part of the song. And we ended up just being like, that has to be on its own, kind of similar to what we did with Siobhan's string arrangement in Requiem, where we were like, this part's too good to get either not used or buried. It has to have its own moment in the sun.
That was a fun part to come up with, because I was like, okay, major key. I'm hearing something uplifting and epic. And honestly, I know, Benny, you've made the comment, oh, that's your Brian May moment. And I'm like, I wasn't thinking Brian May at all. I was thinking more, what would Steve Vai do? Because those layers and the way that, like when the melody starts to dovetail each other, right? The harmonies will go like this. And I was like, that's something I would have heard on like Passion and Warfare back in the day. He used to do a lot of melodic layering and stuff like that. But I got to say, I mean, just when I finished it and I stopped and I was like, I think I giggled a little bit, because I was like, I can't believe that, I came up with something so happy sounding. and don't hate it, right? And that's
it's a rare moment in our world.
Yeah, it totally is. Yep.
Well, secretly, it's like everybody, like there's so many people that come onto Lost Symphony, and it's like quietly everyone's favorite. Like, it's really a song that when people who go deep into our catalog, I always get, that Catnip High song is really cool, because it's not like gloom and doom where it's like the long wait for the end. Like most of our songs are, which are pretty apocalyptic and very metal. Like, we will work backwards from evil names. So like the way we got Catnip High was like, I sent something to Kelly and Conrad, not even thinking it was really a good tune, and they came back with the most insane guitar parts. And my cat was high as fuck on catnip and was dancing around to the mix in my living room, and all of us had cats. And I was like, oh, Brian has a cat.
Yep.
Kelly has a cat. I have a cat. I'm pretty sure Conrad has a cat.
Maybe.
We should just make it a Catnip High.
Catnip High.
And like, But my cat was so psyched. And that's how I feel every time I listen to the song. It's like, I can imagine everybody dancing around, because it's uplifting. And it's like, it's so beautiful. Like that. I feel the same way as I do when I hear I Want to Dance with Somebody Who Loves Me by Whitney Houston, where I'm just like dancing behind people like in line at Bank of America. I don't even care, because I'm excited, because it's Whitney Houston and it's making my soul feel good, and it's just that bass line. That's how I feel about Catnip High. That's our Whitney Houston. I Want to Dance with Somebody Who Loves Me.
Well, if it's Catnip, it's Kitney. I had to pull one out. Dad jokes end here.
That joke just got renal.
God. All right. Away from the cat jokes and all that. Well, so we started the conversation with talking about your YouTube channel for, common guitar things that you learned. Were there any other, things that you wanted to touch on there, or some other projects that you're working on? I mean, that's.
Yeah. I actually just recently got into getting my own website together. And the idea is, and it's up. I haven't announced it. I haven't like put it out there, but it's up there. And I'm just happy I was able to .com my own name.
Amazing.
Now, no one else has my name, I'm pretty sure. So that's not difficult. But you can imagine how difficult it is to get a good website or whatever. Anyway, so myname.com, and it's going to be a hub for everything. So it'll be links to the YouTube page. I'm going to put a podcast page. So basically, I'm going to link all like the podcasts that we've done together, all the ones that I've done. They're all going to eventually be on that page. Links to the tunes, typical website sort of stuff. But I want to be active on it enough where, anyone who Googles the name can find, if they come at me from Negus, they're going to find Sound Chaser and they're going to find Lost Symphony and everything else. So I got that up and running, and web design is definitely interesting. And a little.
Did you design it yourself, or did you get help to put it together? Like, how did you design it?
I did it myself, but I'm not a web designer per se. Like, I don't know anything about it in the abstract. But the programs that you can use nowadays to put a website together. There's a lot of programs that are really intuitive, and they're kind of like, I guess they're sort of like training wheels for putting a website together. And, I picked away at it for a couple months, and that's about it. So the website is up. What else is going on?
Where's your website? What is it?
Kereliuk.com.
We've established.
As mentioned, he got his name.
But we can't spell that. That's spelled weird and Canadian like.
It's very weird and Canadian like. Actually, that's kind of funny. My relatives, almost all of them on my dad's side, they actually take the I out of the last name.
Save you a lot of grief and years of mispronunciation.
They take it out because they're like, you know what? Every time I pick up the phone, it's, hey, is Mr. Kereliuk there, or Kereliuk or whatever, So they're like, you know what? We're just going to jettison the I, and if you can't pronounce that, you got an issue. So it's Kelly, like a girl's name.
Kelly.
Yeah, Kereliuk. I'm brave. I kept the I.
You should just put the little weird thing over it, like the upside down comma, sideways comma, or whatever it is. That gives like it's up. And then I'll know, like the Motley Crue. Like I obviously wouldn't pronounce it right if it didn't have the two little dots.
What is it, an umlaut or whatever?
That's it. Yeah. So I was trying to think of the name of that thing. That's right.
Of course. Being a full-time musician and doing the lessons, playing in bands, doing all that stuff. Maybe it'd be cool to get your take on, being your own boss and kind of running your life as a business, and web design being one of the things that, small business owners have to kind of deal with and learn, but there's a million other things that we have to deal with. You've been, doing this for a while. Like, how have you kind of developed your system?
One thing at a time. Literally. I mean, a lot of people who do a lot of things, especially nowadays with if you have a lot of things that are online and web based, a lot of them, honestly, they hire someone. They'll hire someone to take care of the website. They don't want to deal with it, or hire someone for their social media. If they're big enough, which I'm not, I'm still able to manage all my stuff without any big deal. But when you get to the hundreds of thousands of followers, a lot of them don't do their own social. They just hire someone to do it, and then there's that aspect they don't have to worry about. So honestly, it's just a matter of focusing on one main thing at a time for a while, and then have your satellite things that you touch upon until that main thing is done, and then you shift to do something else. So it's never just one thing at a time, literally. It's one main thing, and then the other stuff around it you touch upon until everything starts to come up.
Well, you're really good at managing it, because, I see you release videos on, all the time, and you're playing in bands and you're doing all sorts of things. So, what does a day look like for you to get out all the things or accomplish all of the different things that you need to do?
Well, luckily, none of those things are super active all at once. So, if you like the introduction there, you guys are Lost Symphony, Prism Mind, 4 or 5 bands. Luckily, they're not all super active all at once. I can put one on priority for a bit, knowing that the other one is at a different stage. So thank goodness for that, or else, my answer would probably be a bit different.
Is this a good time to tell you that we have a bunch of songs with Lost Symphony that we're working on right now, and we're going to need you to play on them? Like,
it is a good time.
The soonest future, so that people know. We have been working on a song called the Beginning of the End, which is like this grand 12.5-minute crazy idea that I had. And
it's past that.
Corey and I are going down next month to Florida to finish the drums with Shannon Larkin, who's like making a guest rhythm thing, because he's awesome with that. So that song's not done, but in the meantime, I decided to write a bunch of tunes, and I sent them out to Siobhan, and I was like, here's more tunes, and they're like way shorter and catchier and like easier for people to understand in this very myopic world. And I'm like, we should make this into a record and have Kelly and Hector play on it together with Mariko and Siobhan and Susanna, just shredding, so that we can make awesome content for our YouTube.
Yeah.
So that we can...
or to just record songs.
Or just to
and the end result should be the song, correct?
I would think so. Yeah,
Song?
absolutely.
Ben is like, so that we can cut it up and create some awesome content.
Yeah, minute by minute. Minute by minute.
Let's make songs so we can have short form content.
Here's what you guys have to understand, though. The thing that you have to do from now is have a static camera so that you can put auto reframe in Premiere or any of your possible. So basically, it'll immediately put you in the middle of the screen. So when you do the up and down phone 9:16 aspect ratio, basically turn my 85-inch television this way, like it'll automatically put you in the middle of the screen so that you'll be prepared when you're thinking, how is my video going to be the best? Just know that you're only going to see this of me.
Exactly. So you got to plan ahead. Clearly, you have planned ahead. So
he's been editing a lot of videos into short form content. So
if you don't have tattoos, you're going to get one. And it's going to say 9:16, 16:9, short form, and you're a content creator before anything else. Right?
Accurate. I say that to myself in the mirror every day.
A typical day would start with a practice session. Surprise, surprise, and usually on acoustic. I try to make a concerted effort to not have that be a weakness. A lot of electric players, once you put an acoustic in their hand, they're like, right? Or they go into Wonderwall or something. I wanted to be able to stay fluent in that, and obviously that helps your electric playing. So my first practice session of the day typically is acoustic, either classical pieces or some of the bluegrass repertoire I'm trying to build up. And then from there, it's just take a look at what needs to be done during the week and start planning and making steps towards it. So it's different every week. It's different every day. Honestly, I don't have a standard answer. It's sort of like people say, "Do you have a practice routine?" I'm like, no. I just make practice a routine.
Right. So how are you organizing your schedule that is so different every week?
It depends how immediate the deadline is, to be honest with you, right? So if like a sound chaser thing comes my way, like the other week, Art sends me a track and he's like, "Oh, Marco Miniman just played on this one. Can you put a solo on it?" And I want to start mixing it because we're almost done album number 3. I'm like, "When do you need it?" He's like, "Yesterday." So then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to get it done this week. So, right. So it depends, but that will take the precedent. That will take the priority. And then my practice will center around that end, right? Around that job. So I'm not going to practice the usual stuff. I'm going to practice stuff that I'm going to need to pull off what I want to do for the solo on that.
So can you give an example? So if you have to do a solo, like what would be the practice that you're doing to help you be primed for that solo? Because I'm curious, as someone that doesn't really solo a lot, what does that look like?
Usually it's just, it's how would I put it? It's reinforcing the basic techniques that I know I'm going to use. There's always something that I'm going to pull out of the hat that I don't know I'm going to use until I go, hey, that thing is going to be what I need for this section. But generally speaking, I'll work on things for the right hand, like for picking, which will, if you really want to, get specific, will be a lot of string crossing exercises. So going between down on say the second string and up on the first, and getting better at the movements required to do that well.
Economy picking.
No. Well, generally, I hardly ever.
No.
Honestly, my economy picking.
Well, no, isn't that when you go like up? Like, isn't that what the economy? Because I'm learning some stuff. Yeah. Isn't that what you were saying? Like to do string skipping, but then to also like go from up to down or down to up.
Well, yeah, to cross to do well. Economy picking is like alternate picking on a single string, but when you go to the next adjacent string, you follow through with the same pick stroke if possible. It's not always possible, but. Honestly, I don't do that very much. It's just not something I've practiced a lot. So my playing tends to be a combination of more alternate with legato kind of stuff and sweep picking here and there. But basically, I'll take the basic techniques and I'll find the hardest parts of those techniques, and I'll like juice from concentrate, right? It's the main stuff that makes that juice what it is. That's how I'll work on my practice stuff. I'll go, okay, here's this technique that has different, elements to it, but what are the ones that are giving me the most grief? And I'll zero in on those and practice them. And usually it's completely unsexy. Like to go back and forth between two strings over and over and over again, is sort of like anyone watching you would be like, get this guy a straitjacket, right? He's clearly out of his mind. But, you can get a lot done in a short amount of time if you concentrate your efforts on what really, really needs the work. And honestly, a lot of it is like, it's very, very small things. 2 notes. 2 notes is usually the problem out of a 10-note phrase. If you're having an issue, it's usually what goes on between that note to that note. It might be your left hand, it might be your right hand, but it's usually one little thing. So that's what I try to do when I'm practicing for a recording. I'll go and focus on those elements.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting perspective. It's very cool.
Well, it's sort of, I guess it would be sort of prescriptive, right? Like if you were to teach someone how to play, the third measure of partita 3, right? That constant melody that with the pedal tone, right? And they're having trouble getting between the 2 strings with the bow. How would you recommend that they fix that, right? You would probably go, okay, well, if it's just going between those 2 strings, here's a little mini exercise you can come up with that will help fix that one. It's not the whole lick. It's just that one little element, right? And you get more done in a short amount of time when you zero in.
Yeah, condensing it down to what is the essential problem. You kind of eliminate all of the extra stuff that's getting in the way of what you need to focus on, which, in the violin example would be like, all right, don't even do the left hand, just work on the right hand, get the coordination of the bow and, then add the left hand.
Yeah, exactly.
I can play the pentatonic scale.
Like a mofo. I've heard it, man. I've heard it.
Well, it's crazy though, because I go now and I try to learn these exercises because I will say, and thank you, Kelly. I actually did take lessons from Kelly for a while, and I do the neurotic guitars, and I was embarrassed with my playing because I'm like, all the time people are like, play these guitars. I'm like yelling about them. So now I have to play for a bunch of people, and I'm like really self-conscious, and I never pretend like to anybody that I think I'm any good. But I've gotten so much better because of some of the simple things that Kelly's talking about. So for example, just finding the 2 notes that are wrong and then slowing down and just working on like 4 notes at a time, 2 notes at a time. And like, I meticulously have gone through a few things, and it's like at first, like a lot of the stuff that, you'll learn from Kelly, when you play it slow, it sounds completely like a different thing than when you play it fast. You don't necessarily hear what it really sounds like until it's fast. So like, I have played some of the things that Kelly taught me in those first lessons, and it's like a year and a half later, I'm like, did Kelly just come through the DI box? Just for a moment. Not for like more than like 2 notes, but for those 2 notes,
right?
I could sound like Kelly. And I have to tell you, it's really helped my playing to focus on just that stuff. And I can't explain to people how important it is to stop trying to hack through things, but to really just figure out.
That's the big thing. It's awareness and intent. A lot of players, they're aware that something's wrong, but their awareness is not tweaked to the point where they can tell what is wrong. And until that is achieved, it's still going to be, slop city for that thing, whatever that thing is. So it's like self-awareness in any day-to-day life, right? Like if you don't realize that you might have a little bit of BO when you're walking around in a mall and someone, looks at you kind of funny because they smell you, but no one else. But you don't know that you smell, right? You don't have that self-awareness. You're just going to think that guy's, being a jerk. Right?
So what you're saying is don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy, yeah. Self-awareness. It definitely plays a role in music and well, maybe not directly music, but indirectly in your development.
Yeah. Well, it's also focus, because I remember being in music school, and there was this thing where it's like, who practiced the most? Like everyone was like ready to talk about, I was in the practice room for 6 hours today or 7 hours today. And, I don't remember which violinist it was. Maybe it was Itzhak Perlman, but, it's somebody that's a great violinist said, it really isn't essential to play more than like 3 hours a day. Like, and that like, that's at the top end. If you're super focused and you divide it up properly and you're like really only working on this stuff and not just like playing, for the purpose of like repetition and like not mindful playing.
Yes.
You're actually doing yourself a disservice to spend all these extra hours doing something that doesn't have a direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why you can practice 6 hours a day. You can have two people that practice 6 hours a day. And one of them is going to have more awareness of their issues than the other one. Focus, you can only focus on what you're aware of. So the awareness comes first, the focus comes in second to sear it in, right? But whoever's the most aware of their issue is going to end up with the better result at the end. And the person, who swears that they practice 6 to 8 hours a day and is getting nowhere, according to them, what they've probably done is attempted what they're playing for 6 to 8 hours.
Yeah.
Right? Attempted it, lunging at it. Like, I'm going to get it, eventually. And
can I tell you how I learned from Mike Wallace, like old school Mike Wallace interview with Vladimir Horowitz, one of the greatest pianists that has ever lived. His version of Hungarian Rhapsody has ravished my mind many a times on psychedelic drugs. He's great. Anyway, he's dead, but he was great. But Vladimir Horowitz was one of the greatest pianists, and he's sitting there doing an interview with Mike Wallace, and Mike Wallace asked him, like, so how often do you practice, and how do you know if you're getting any better? And his wife chimes in. She goes, I know when he's wrong. And then he asked her, do you know how to play piano? She goes, no, but I know when he's wrong. And that's what I encourage people to do. Surround yourself with people who literally not only don't give a fuck that you're the greatest pianist in the world, that literally know enough about it to tell you you're wrong. And that's how you become as good as Kelly.
Or you could just avoid the stress and be your own wife. Okay? Be your own devil on the shoulder going, no. I don't know.
I don't have that type of self-restraint.
Yeah. Ben's like, you're doing great, man. You're killing it. You nailed it.
Yeah, he's got the opposite.
You're a content creator.
Well, Kelly, let me ask you this. So you said awareness before focus. So how do you foster awareness? Where does the awareness come from? Is it a teacher? Is it something that people like can practice on their own? Like, how do you get that awareness?
I have a couple tricks, and this has worked for myself and most of my students who are suffering with this kind of thing or concerned about it. I put myself in a scenario. So the one that I have the most fun telling people about, because they're usually students, and when they hear this one, they're kind of humored by it. I go, okay, what's your favorite band? And they'll go, whatever, just Metallica. Like, okay, well, you woke up in the morning and you got an email from Metallica saying, we're going to record every note that you practice for the next week, and we're going to use it on our new album. Doesn't matter if it's fast, doesn't matter. It just has to be good. I go, if you got that email, after they stop giggling, I'll ask them, if you got that email, how would you approach your practice that day differently? And they're like, well, I would, like, every note would be, I would be very careful about everything I play because they're going to use it. I'm like, exactly. So pretend you're getting recorded. It's going through pipes and stuff all the way over to Metallica Central, where they're going to put every single note in some fashion or other on their new recording. How would you change the way you practice then?
I'd put a wah pedal on it.
Wah, wah, wah.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, just did, Ben. Yeah, just did. So that scenario, putting yourself, it's ridiculous, but making yourself think in that way, all of a sudden you change. Like, you change the way that you approach every single thing. You might find that you don't make a single mistake. Like, why program mistakes in your playing? Why? You don't have to.
Yeah, if you're willing to take enough time. Yeah, absolutely. If you're willing to go slowly enough and focus. Yeah.
How many students would you say you've had over the years?
Oh my God. Well, I started teaching when I was 16. So that's 31 years I've been teaching.
So a few? Man. You've had a few students?
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. I don't even want to hazard a guess.
My point being, it seems like you have that tip loaded in the cannon. Are there other things throughout your teaching career that you just know, things that have come up with so many students, you kind of have an answer for these kind of symptoms that they're dealing with? Like, what are the main things that you come across with any student you have, or a large majority of the students you have, that you always seem to pull out to get them over a hump?
A big one is strumming. So even if they're not lead guitar players or no aspiration for such, they just want to strum certain things. What I try to do is remember what I went through when I was trying to get past that hurdle myself. And with strumming, I always thought it was going to be down, up, no matter what. So if the rhythm was, I'd go down, up, down, up, down, up. I would be like very rigid and very, it just didn't feel right. It didn't sound good. And I'm like, this can't be it, because this sounds so relaxed. It sounds so leisurely and simple. Here I am going, like, just trying to play the thing, right? And I'm like, something's got to be wrong. So after watching players, pre-YouTube, obviously, so I'm just watching like Hee Haw or whatever, right? Watching players.
Roy Clark!
Right? See, here we go. Buck Owens. You watch them, and even if they're playing the craziest stuff, they're very relaxed, and you just watch their right hand movement, and you realize, if I were deaf, if I couldn't hear what they were playing, it just looks like this. It's just a pendulum movement. And then it dawned on me, I'm like, oh, it's just that, but you don't always contact the strings. So the movement is that relaxed thing that we're able to do forever and ever without fatigue, but you only contact the strings when you need that chord to be heard. That's why it's down, down, up, down. That's why it's not just down, up, down, up. It just so happens that to achieve that rhythm, sometimes the strings are contacted on downs, sometimes it's up, sometimes it's 2 ups in a row. Whatever happens, whatever needs to be done to get the rhythm to happen. The point is that the movement is a very natural pendulum style. And then that carries into alternate picking too. That carries into lead playing, where the rhythm isn't just, right? Sometimes the rhythm is also broken up and it's still alternate picking, but you leave holes where you need to have holes, and you skip pick strokes that you need to skip. It's still, the foundation of it is still that pendulum motion.
So it's what you take out. It's not necessarily what you're adding to it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. A lot of great perspectives. I'm learning a lot about guitar.
We got to get you one. Oh, wait a minute. You got plenty of them at home. You got plenty of them at home.
No. I have not succeeded at sounding good or being able to remember even chord shapes. I think it's just out of my wheelhouse.
We'll just pretend the stuff you're practicing is going to Metallica.
Right? Yeah.
Right. I will play one note perfectly over and over again.
Why don't you just emasculate your husband and learn how to play his instrument better in his own house?
Oh my!
Shouldn't Brock be better at some things than you? Like, let him have guitar.
Yeah, let him have
building
that.
desks.
Yeah, I'm not going to stop on that. But I'm going to let him have that.
Fixing BMWs. There's a long list that he's really good at.
That's true.
Don't usurp his talent.
I will not.
I will not. I will not cross that line.
So, I'm sure these tips you're sharing with us are going to be all over your, the new website, the new YouTube, the Instagram, everything. Do you have, you mentioned that you're kind of working, but not launching the Instagram and stuff like that, and the website. Like, what's your timeline for getting this stuff out? Is it kind of a leisured pace, just as it comes across, or do you have a deadline? Or
I intended to actually have the new Instagram page out last week, but then the more I thought about it, I'm like, I've got material ready to release. I've got video shot. I've got the tabs written out because I want to include both. But then I started thinking about other things. I'm like, okay, so now when I go to upload it, I need a name. I need a name for the thing. I'm like, do I just use the same as the YouTube page? Maybe. How do I want to format it? Do I want to do video? You know how you can do like if you were doing a regular post, you can put multiple pictures on one post or a video. And so I'm like, do I do that? Or do I do the tabs in the video? I'm still looking through the logistics of things to make it as clean and smooth as possible. So I have like a standard format that I can use until I feel like changing it. So there's just certain things I'm still like mulling over, little details. But I would say the Instagram thing, I'm just going to shit or get off the pot and just do it like in the next week. The website is already up. It's already up. I just haven't said anything publicly about it. So.
Well, by the time this is out, that means that you will be up and running. So we'll be sure to have we'll have links to everything in the description below. To all the bands, all the Lost Symphony stuff that you've played on, and we look forward to doing more. In this coming year. Definitely excited about that. Anything else you want to tell our several dozen or like so listeners about?
Off the top, I can't think of anything other than watch for Lost Symphony, new music, lostsymphony.com.
I want to try a new segment here before we leave. Let's talk about some hot topics.
Go for it.
What do you think about Pantera?
Interesting. I was not expecting that question. I love the fact that it's happening, but I've seen Pantera 3 times. I don't need to see
with Dimebag, like not the reunion tribute, not the Pantera with Vinnie Paul and Dimebag Darrell.
Right. I think it's cool, and they couldn't have picked two. Honestly, people are bitching about Zach. I'm like, come on, give your head a shake. Like honestly, he makes the most sense. Charlie is just killer too. He's one of the guys in metal that actually has his own sound and feel. I can tell Charlie. I can't tell a lot of the super sampled drummers from each other. I'm like, I don't they're all the same. But Charlie has a sound. He's got a sound and a feel. It's not the same as Vinny, but it doesn't have to be. It's not gonna be. He knows how to get as close to that and do it justice. So I think Phil picked great guys for it.
All right, next hot topic.
Yep.
Lux Eterna by Metallica. It kind of sounds like Whiplash to me, and I want to like it, and I want to welcome it into my heart, but Metallica have let me down, whether it's sonically or writing-wise, for so many years that I don't know if I should like it like the Black Album or dislike it like Load, or really... How am I supposed to feel about this?
Well, considering, they just released a second single. I haven't heard that yet. The first one, I loved it. I thought it was great. I was like, I secretly found myself just like listening to it, and then all of a sudden, before I knew it, I was doing this.
That's what I did too.
It was great. I thought it was great. Like, they don't need to prove anything to us anymore. They haven't had to prove anything to us in a million years. But they're still doing it, and they're still pulling it out. You know what I mean? Like, this one touches upon the old school feel. And, every album that they've released promises that there's some of that on there. And I don't think the whole thing will be exactly like that. I'm sure there will still be, newer elements that they've picked up here and there. But I like where that one was going. And so I give it a thumbs up as well.
Now, here's hot topic number 3. Now, this one's for me personally. Why is Jake? Can you explain as a guitarist why Jakey Lee actually is as good as Randy Rhoads?
Is that a trick question? Like, are you
he's recoiling a little
saying
bit.
He's not, and you want me to justify that?
I really think that he is as good. And in fact, I listened to Jake era. So John Dene from Anthrax put this thought in my head. He's like, Jake era Ozzy is underrated. I think it's better than Randy. Like, well, who would ever say that? And then I went back to all my bootlegs, and I compared Mr. Crowley to Mr. Crowley with like Randy and all, and I couldn't believe how much I was digging these mid 80s Jakey Lee bootlegs. And I found myself not saying that he's better than Randy Rhoads, but thinking to myself, he's the most underappreciated guitarist that I didn't know that I loved. Why? You were alive, weren't you?
I was, and that's around the time that I started to get into. Maybe I'm trying to tell here. When I got into Ozzy, it was around that era, and The Ultimate Sin. That was the album. Like, Bark of the Moon was pretty good. It had obviously Bark of the Moon and like Center of Eternity and some killer tracks, but sound wise and playing wise, I think Ultimate Sin blows it out of the water. Yeah, he's great. But here's the thing. He's a generation after Randy. Expect improvements. Expect things to be taken to a different level, right? Not hugely far removed from Ozzy or from Randy. I mean, it was only like 4 years or something like that. 3 or 4 years. But still, he came from a generation of, I'm talking about Jake, of not only hearing Randy and guys like that, but he had his own set of influences that would have made him, take the steps that he took to sound like, the next step after that. Have you heard Badlands?
Oh, yeah. It's ridiculous. But too bad Red Dragon Cartel sucked. Okay, next topic.
How many topics do we have out of curiosity?
This is the last one. Are we all good now?
We're good.
Okay. I forgot it real quick.
You forgot to tell me.
I started thinking about it. And I was like, oh, what was I going to say?
Okay, so
You don't have these in a list?
You have to call this one lukewarm topic then, because if you can't think of what it was,
wasn't that hot?
It's not a hot topic. It's lukewarm.
Is it gone? It's gone.
Tepid. The tepid topic.
It escaped.
Oh yeah, John 5. John 5 is now in Motley Crue. Motley Crue has Vince Neil as a singer. How do you think they're going to sound with John 5?
He's going to do obviously a great job. Like super versatile player and a pro, like through and through. So, yeah, he's going to be great. Like what more do you need to say? John 5 is, he's going to pull that off.
Well, here's my whole thing. I feel like the rest of Motley Crue are doing what Black Sabbath did when Ozzy was losing his hearing and nobody wanted to admit that he couldn't sing anything on note. And like Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler and Tony Clefettis, who was playing drums at that moment, all played so stoically as Ozzy sang an entire set exactly a half key off the entire. It was a consistently so bad. I couldn't believe how bad it was. And meanwhile, Tony Iommi's doing like the solo, like for every song, like it's the last solo he's ever going to do. And it's like, how does these guys, how they're so good musically, but they're just ignoring what's happening? When you said that John 5's a pro, do you mean that he's able to ignore the talent that has left the singer in his band?
Yeah.
Rob Zombie, Marilyn Manson. He's gone downhill. Marilyn Manson, who could a little bit sing. Rob Zombie, who could barely even like scream to talk to himself. Which whatever, he's cool though. And now it's gone to Vince Neil, who's just not even a shadow of himself. He's like a giant potato head version of himself.
Okay, well, I'm going to go back to Rob Zombie for a sec. I saw White Zombie two times prior to Rob Zombie doing his own thing. Both times, Rob is sick. Right, so he's apologizing. He's doing events. He's leaving words out. He's just like every other word kind of thing. Things that we expect from Vince Neil, right? So I saw Rob Zombie one time on his own, fully expecting the same thing. Much to my surprise, he wasn't sick. He nailed it. It was awesome. Every word, full energy, blah blah blah. So in those cases of Rob Zombie, I gotta like give him props. Like he can do it when he's able to do it. Vince, you know what? I go, what else do you have to do? Like what else do you got to do in a day other than like maintain that? It's, like why is it so lackluster? And I hate saying that because I love Motley Crue. I wish I could say that Vince, held up over the years, or
well, he's got the reverse Ozzy, because Ozzy, you can understand what he's saying when he sings, but when he talks, Vince Neil speaks totally normally, like a normal human being that speaks English. But once he goes on stage, he gets girls wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand it. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate as to why that is. I mean, you could say, oh, it's lazy, or it's he's got a condition, or I don't know. I don't know the reason why, but I'm like, man, if you're in that position, if you're in one of those tier of bands and your only job is to be who you are at the level that you need to be to make it worth the price to pay to go and see you, damn, man. Like, I'd love to strip away tons of stuff that I don't want to fucking deal with to be able to just play at that level or whatever and not have to worry about anything else. So I don't know, but I will say this. I'm going to redeem Vince on something. I saw a video, YouTube video. It was Motley Crue. Now, mind you, it was years ago. It was, I think it was the girls era. Same thing. That one time I saw it, nailed it. No out of breath, no every second word. I was like watching this whole thing, fully intending to go to bed after 5 minutes. I was like, okay, I'm going to go to bed. Nope. Watching this set, and I'm like, oh my God. I've seen footage earlier that was sort of like what you would expect, and obviously we've seen stuff more recently. But this performance, and I wish I could find what it was. It was outdoor and it was during the day. That's all I remember. This one video, and I'm just like, friggin' nailed it. Like, that's what it should be all the time, right there. So he's capable of it. Maybe he doesn't want to. Maybe he doesn't feel the need to.
Maybe he's just trolling everybody ever. Because I saw all these videos coming in from Fenway Park. They came and played at Fenway Park, and everyone's posting all these songs. And like, there's no way that if you like listen to the songs on the video that you could possibly think that this is any representation of like a normal rock and roll band. And everyone's holding up their phones and all of that. I'm like, who's trolling who? Yeah. That's my question. Is Motley Crue trolling us, charging us $500 a ticket and still sucking? Or are we trolling Vince Neil and just laughing at the fact that he's so shitty? Like, how could he possibly sell out Fenway Park as a bunch of other people are holding up their phones?
You know what? I think what it comes down to is the recording legacy stands on its own.
Fair enough.
The recordings that they've done, the albums, the influence they've had, if he feels, or any of them, feel like resting on that, I guess you got to let him do it because, you know, they're great albums. I know I was hooked. That's what got me into play. That's what transitioned me out of Michael Jackson, essentially. I was listening to tons of Michael Jackson, and then I heard something that kind of scared me. It was a Motley Crue song. I'm like, I don't know if I should be listening to this. It sounds a little...
Is that when you started like dressing like from kind of looking like a girl to totally looking like a girl? Was that the transition?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And with that, you've been 2020, Kelly. Go check out lostsymphony.com. Kelly Kereliuk, but it's with a LIUK.com.
That's it.
Stay tuned for his Instagram, which is, I'm sure we'll have it at the bottom and all that. And thank you, Kelly, for being awesome with Lost Symphony. LostSymphony.com, Lost Symphony Music on YouTube. Go check out Chapter 1, 2, and 3, especially Catnip High, and Leave Well Enough Alone off Chapters 1 and 2, respectively. And Kelly, expect new songs from us, from Lost Symphony, to you soon. And for everybody else who's listening and watching to hear, hopefully, ASAP.
I have cleared my inbox for those, so I'm ready. I'm ready.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, guys. Good to see you all again.
Yeah, it was great to see you. It was awesome.
One day in person.
Right on.
Yeah.
Check out 2020-d.com. We'll see you next week.
You know, songwriting is very similar to watching a film because, you know, they build in peaks and valleys, and like there's a Denzel movie and it's just the shootout and the fighting and all this crap is going and all hell's breaking loose, and then right after it it's this lull of the music kind of chills, guys laying on the ground, they're dead. It's, you know, he saved the girl or whatever. So it's like a chorus and a verse. I see things very similarly. So films also affect me, and I love film music as well.